Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Rodeo Joe Show. This is week 3 in the NFL, and I'm just going to go over a couple short topics, and then we will get right into Thursday night's game between the Titans and Jaguars. And first things first, breaking news. It was reported a couple hours ago that Antonio Brown has been cut by New England. This is something that we all kind of seen coming. I mean, we didn't really take too much into the fact of him getting signed by New England. We knew it was just kind of a matter of time to see where this was all going to go for him. It's just one thing after another with him. It's every day it seems like a new person's coming out and wanting to, accuse him of, doing this, that, and the other. And I've said before on my previous episodes that New England's a team that's just not going to tolerate it. They're not going to put up with it. And it showed. I mean, and I think Antonio Brown was aware of that too. He knew that, it's kind of out of his control at this point. These are allegations that have happened years ago. I don't know how I feel about it. It's one thing when at first you hear about it, the allegation with his former trainer, Brittany Taylor, who came out and offered a $2 million plus settlement, and he refused. So, that kind of tells me that he's willing to fight against that, and there might be some things that's wrongfully accused on his behalf with that. But then, when you get multiple people that are coming in and saying, well, he did this, or he was wearing a little towel here and watching me paint, and he was and doing this, that, and the other, and it's just kind of like, okay, well, enough's enough. Between the several different people coming out with allegations, I mean, even the whole crazy farting in the doctor's office in the doctor's face. I mean, it's just like, maybe he had this period where he was just thought he was untouchable and just thought he was funny, or just thought that, well, I don't know, I guess said it, untouchable, for him to be acting out that way. But I'm not going to make any accusations of a man because, he's innocent until proven guilty. But it doesn't look too good for him with all these people, continually coming out with stuff. What I think he should do right now is he just kind of has to just sit, lay back and just focus on training and being in football shape, and just kind of let the legal system just kind of work itself out. Let these interviews take place and stuff. And will we see him sometime this year? I don't know. You can't even really make a prediction on anything with him, because it's literally been a week-to-week thing with him. It's crazy how his timeline is unraveled from the start of the offseason of him getting traded to Oakland, and then just everything that's transpired up until then, till now. I don't know. Just keep your nose clean and stay out of trouble, and just, he'll get an opportunity to play again, but will it be this year? I'd be leaning against no. I don't even think he will play. But you never know. I mean, we'll just see kind of how it all plays out. And what else I was going to cover was there's some newly posted injuries, notable injuries, I will say, because there are a couple games that I'm going to preview, and I'll tell you guys about some of the injuries that are kind of key notable injuries there. But as far as these are kind of ones that either they were just recently reported, or they're of a very notable player, like I said. But it's been bounced around back and forth for the past week. But Cam Newton is ruled out this Sunday. He hasn't practiced at all this week. He has a foot sprain, so look for him to be out of the lineup. And we have reports too that David Njoku for the Browns is going to be out as well. It's possible that he will need wrist surgery, and he's expected to miss some time. So just kind of keep up on that and kind of see how that goes. And Darius Leonard, the linebacker for the Colts, all-pro linebacker, I should say, is just a tackling machine for them. And he's going to miss this Sunday because of a concussion. So he entered the protocol and didn't pass by any means whatsoever. He didn't practice at all this week, so he is a scratch this Sunday for the Colts. So now, with that all being said, let's just get down into breaking down last night's game with the Titans and Jaguars, which, I'm I'm losing all my credibility with these Thursday night games the way I've been picking them. It's just, I like to kind of play the mantra that, with the 4 days between games, you kind of want to stick with the home team, but then, Tampa Bay had to kind of spoil that last week. So now I'm just kind of like, I don't know where to go with this. I mean, what are we seeing out of, these teams? I was really, really shocked by the outcome, to be honest. I mean, anybody can win in a divisional game. I mean, it's just a matter of kind of just how the ball spins and lands in the whatever other expression you want to use for that matter. But divisional games are tough. So am I surprised that Jacksonville took this one? Not at all. But just the way that they did it, the way they controlled the game. They maintained a 17-0 lead early, and they actually got up on them 14-0 early on in the first quarter. And I think I read somewhere that said that this is their first quarter 2-touchdown lead, and since I think it was of last season, week 3 of last season, which is crazy to think about. But you just got to tip your hat off to Gardner Minshew. I mean, he came in, the deck stacked completely against him, and he's just performed. I mean, he's done what he needs to do to get the job done and win. And he's not breaking any records by any means. I mean, he's being a very efficient guy. Maybe the playbook isn't completely opened up to him yet. I'm not sure, but he's just doing what he needs to do to win and actually play effectively. And they were a squandered, right there at the goal line, 2-point conversion away from, being a 2-1 team right now. And so you just got to, kind of tip your hat off to what he was able to do, because, this team, despite all their, issues that they've had with, losing their starting quarterback, who they paid good money to get in the first week of the season, to putting in a 6th-round draft pick that nobody's ever heard of. I know nobody's heard of him. unless you followed him in college, you don't know who he is. Maybe a diehard Jacksonville fan, but nobody knows who this guy is. And he just comes up and just, plays really, really well. And some takeaways from the game. The Jacksonville faithful are behind him. They really like him. It was they were chanting his name throughout the game. It was kind of crazy. They're calling this the Minshew Mania. So, I mean, the team's behind him. I mean, and the defense played incredible. Got to tip your hat off to them. They came away with 9 sacks. Calais Campbell had 3 sacks. So just we don't. And then I got to look at Tennessee, and it's just definitely not the team that showed up in Week 1 against Cleveland on the road. They only gave Derrick Henry the ball 17 times. He's arguably their best player on offense right now, and Mariota just, he threw for 300 yards, but they don't seem to have any. They're not really gelling really well. They don't really have a good momentum. Based after, like I said, I hate to beat a dead horse because I know Browns fans hate me talking about this, but I mean they scored 28 unanswered points in the second half against Cleveland in that Week 1 game, and then since then they've just been flat. And I don't know what the issue is. I don't know what's going on there, but it's definitely something they need to correct. One little piece, side note, a rarity occurred last night in that game. There was, I believe it was Sean Hockley's crew that was refereeing the game, and I spoke yesterday on how I felt about referees and this, that, and the other, and kind of cut them some slack because they're not full time and this, that, and the other. But they called I want to say the number was like 13 or maybe 15 penalties in the first half, and the vast majority of it was offensive holding penalties. And it actually got Tom Brady to tweet that he's turning the game off. He's tired of all these penalties. Let us play. And you can have certain players come out and complain and moan about how the referees are, but when you're the face of your league for the most part, I mean, I think we all could agree that Tom Brady probably is that for the NFL. When he comes out and says he's not watching it because he's tired of, seeing these penalties, I think it's going to open up the NFL's eyes. This is a serious issue across the players, and a lot of media will also agree with that as well. But like I said, it's just too short in the season. It's too early in the season to just kind of just jump right on their necks. But that's what it's a storyline. So I just think that just give them some more time, and we'll see how it's like, come week 5 or 6 in the NFL. And it's kind of unfortunate, but, the NFL is a lot to blame for that, for not giving these guys full-time positions because of the money that it would cost them. But, I mean, what do you want? You want the quality of your game to be better? Because, yeah, you might have to spend a couple bucks, but, it's for the, the general quality of the product on the field and the officiating. And I think you'd be dumb not to do that. But, like I said, tip my hats off to the Jaguars for an impressive win. The defense just came to play, played very, very well, and I was really totally shocked with the outcome and impressed at the same time. So, hats off to them. Now, moving forward, we will go with the rest of the games that will be taking place in this week 3 of the NFL. First game. The first game is probably the one that needs talked about the least. We got the Dolphins at the Cowboys. Cowboys coming to this game 23-point favorites in this game, and I mean, why wouldn't they be? I don't know how you feel about Miami. Do you feel a little bit sorry for them, the guys that are actually out there still trying to play? Or do you just kind of is just something to laugh at right now? Because I'm kind of torn. I don't know where I sit with these guys because, they come in and they get throttled by the Ravens. Then they get to play New England and get shut out in a complete freaking bloodbath of a game. And follow that up with a game against who I think is one of the best teams in the NFL, completely. Very, very, very balanced and very well ran team in Dallas at home. And it's not that Dallas has played bad either. Dallas has played very impressive. And what's their next game is against these guys. And I've also seen a lot of people kind of throwing some bad stuff along the way of Dallas and saying, well, look at the competition. Look at who they played. They get the Giants and they get the Redskins. Woo-doo. What's that? That's nothing, And it's like, you play who you're supposed to, who's on your schedule. That's just the way it goes. And I still think, that this league, it's been said by countless players, teams, coaches for years and years that, every team is good from top to bottom. It's only, every team is full of talented players. It's just, it's a matter of a couple bad breaks and a couple plays that dictate, games and seasons for all these teams. So with that being said, Dallas has been impressive, regardless of who they've had to play, and it's gonna be a snoozer. Unfortunately, I think this week for them again. So they come in. One thing I will say is that Michael Gallup is ruled out for this game. He's the Cowboys' leading receiver. Not that really matters. I mean, they could put the Cowboy in from Michigan in there for all that matters, and I think they'll be all right with the Dolphins. And this is going to be Josh Rosen's first start with Miami. So look for poor guy. He's in for it. I'm afraid to say, or he could just jog the world and come out and just ball out. It's not going to happen. But I mean, I've said a lot of things in this series and been completely wrong and looked like an idiot. So I really feel confident on this one, though. But I got Dallas winning big in this game. The next game, we got the Broncos at the Packers. Packers are 7.5-point favorites in this game. You got Denver, who we didn't expect a whole lot out of them this season, but it is kind of shocking considering that they are still without a sack and a turnover through 2 games. I look for that to change. Will it change this week? Maybe against a kind of somewhat shaky offensive line at times with Green Bay. I don't know. I really don't know, because Green Bay is playing really, really well right now. And yeah, I look for Green Bay to definitely win this game. And the best part about the way they've been doing it is they have had a very good balanced attack. I mean, we already know, and I've said before how impressive their defense has looked up to this point, but I mean, they're even getting Aaron Jones involved in this game, running the ball. I believe he had 23 carries for 116 last week. I mean, when you've got Hall of Fame caliber quarterback with Aaron Rodgers back there, and then you got a good solid running game on top of that defense, it's going to be a hard team to beat this year. It really is. And coupled with the fact that Denver is winless at Lambeau. They have a 0-5-1 record at Lambeau, so it doesn't look very bright for Denver. But I do look for the defense to kind of make it a little bit of a closer game. It's not going to be a blowout by any means, but because I was really impressed with the way they played last week against Chicago. But they just, it just came down to the end, and you had to tip your hat off to the Bears last week for the way they played. But I look for Green Bay to win this one, close one. I know about 7.5 points, maybe somewhere around there, maybe a little bit less, but it's going to be a competitive game, I think. So moving on, got the Falcons at the Colts. This makes for an interesting game. You got a lot of explosive playmaking on Atlanta's end. However, Matt Ryan has turned the ball over way too many times, and it's uncharacteristic out of him to do that. He has 5 picks already this season, and he only had 7 of all of last season. So it's odd, but we have seen it. He needs to hold on to the football better. because they've got plenty of talent on offense, and their defense is playing a little bit better than what it was expected, I think. So if Matt Ryan can take care of the ball, and I think that Atlanta should be able to pull this game off. I think they'll win this game, but don't count out Indy, because they've got a good they're one of those teams too that you look at. We've said it before with them losing Luck. They come in and they've got a surprisingly good running game going. They kind of are trying to just basically come out there and control the clock, limit mistakes, and they're actually tied in the league, them in Minnesota, for the second best rushing attack this season. So you can't count them out at home, especially if they're able to maintain possession. They get a couple turnovers from Matt Ryan. They could easily end up winning this game, and I think that's why they're favored in this game, because of that. But I still have to go with what I seen last week. I think this is a good bounce back game for Atlanta, and I see Atlanta winning this game. It should be a good one though. Next game is the Raiders at Vikings. The Vikings are 9.5. 9.5 point favorites in this game. I don't know how I feel about that one, but when you think about Minnesota, you're obviously going to go to Dalvin Cook and just think of how well he's ran the ball so far this season, and that's what they need to do if they want to win this game, and I think they will win this game. 9.5 points, I don't know about that, because Oakland has been playing a lot better than what's expected given the circumstances that they've faced this offseason and this, going into this regular season as well. But Kirk Cousins is their Achilles heel. If he turns the ball over, like he did last week, he had 3 turnovers. It's going to be a close game, and in this league you can't do that. If you want to be who they believe they are, and that's playoff caliber team. You can't leave a team hanging around like that, by committing these, stupid turnovers. But it's going to be a game that I think the Vikings will win. Oddly enough, this is the first road game for the Raiders, and they got to go all the way until November 3rd without playing another game at home. And it's just crazy to think about. I believe they have 2 games on let's see, what do they have? I think they have another 2 games on the road, and then their next home game is a game in London. And then the NFL follows that back up, and being the generous league that they are, and I think they give them a bye and then another, if I'm not mistaken, road game, and then they go home. Like I said, it's November 3rd when that is their next home game. So this is the first of many road games ahead for the Oakland Raiders. But I still see Minnesota pulling this one off. And move into an AFC East matchup. One of the teams is going to show up. The other one's just going to dominate. It's the Jets and Patriots. Patriots are 21.5 point favorites in this game. I mean, you looked at them last Monday night against Cleveland, and Cleveland had their moments where they looked really good. I looked at the Jets and they're not a good team. They're not a good team right now. They're especially not a good team without their starting quarterback, and he should still miss some more time. Luke Falk is supposed to start for the Jets, with Simeon being out for the whole season after that hit he took last week. And this isn't shaping up to be too good for the Jets. They haven't won in Foxborough in the regular season since 2008. And on top of that, New England is the only team in the NFL this season, the only team so far this whole season that has not allowed a touchdown. In their 2 games, they are 76-3. So, I mean, New England, there are a few teams that are complete, but I don't think there's any that's maybe as complete as what New England is with what they've done defensively. They're just on a completely different wavelength defensively. They're just an impressive team, and this is what they get. They get the luxury of playing in the AFC least, so they get these games six times a year. So, which the Bills are looking better, so maybe that might fare to be a better matchup when they play. But so far this is going to be another dominant performance, I'm afraid, by New England, and I look for them to win big at home. But then moves us to our next game. The undefeated Lions. Oh, well, I mean, they're 1-0-1, but they haven't lost a game yet. Taking on the Eagles at home. The Eagles are 6-point favorites in that game. And I like the Eagles in that matchup, although you can't roll out the Lions because they've had some impressive spurts. They had their first game of the season. They were up by 18. We know how that game ended with the tie, but you keep them hanging around, they'll be right in there. And on top of that, you have Alshon Jeffrey's questionable. They don't know if he'll play or not, and Deshaun Jackson is out. So, I mean, that wide receiving core is going to be pretty banged up and, obviously depleted for the Eagles. So, it's unfortunate, but injuries are part of the game, and that could dictate it completely. So, but I still like the Eagles, like I said, in this game. Funny enough, the last time Matt Patricia faced the Eagles was in the Super Bowl, and we know how the Philly special ended, and so he's not particularly too warm to see them this Sunday. But I look for a decent game. I look for better than a 6-point win that they, or I'm sorry, I said. I look for the Eagles to win, but not as wide of a margin as 6 points. I look for it to be a little bit closer than that. I look like a field goal game coming down to the wire, but that's just me. The Eagles, this is also something that kind of lends to the favor of Detroit a little bit. Is the Eagles, since the start of last season, have only scored 41 points in the first quarter. It's a very slow starting team, and Matthew Stafford can get hot at any minute. So, I mean, that's why I kind of feel the way I feel in the game. It's kind of, I'm sitting there kind of in that little, how do I feel completely about the Eagles? How do I feel about the Lions? But I got to give a slight edge to the Eagles in this game, especially playing at home. But it'll be an interesting game to see how it shakes out. And moving on, we have the Panthers taking on the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are 2-point favorites in this game. I don't know why. I would think that they would be at least a touchdown favorite in this game, especially given the news to Cam not being able to play. Because, outside of red zone woes that, the Cardinals have had, they've been a pretty good team offensively so far this year, which, Kyler Murray has thrown back-to-back 300-yard games. He's the only player to do that since the guy he's not going to be able to face this week, Cam Newton. And so they say that Kyle Allen is expected to start, which he was a former Texas A&M teammate of Kyler Murray's, and they actually split time together at A&M. So that's kind of interesting. So that makes for a pretty interesting storyline, I suppose, into the game. And another thing with Arizona is they need to get David Johnson the ball more. I mean, 7 carries for 14 yards last week. It's not good enough. You got to give him the ball more. These teams that are struggling to kind of get the ground game going just seem like they're not even trying. They're not even really giving them the opportunity. They're just kind of disbanding it altogether. I mean, I'm seeing teams that barely get 14 carries for their running back, but throw almost 60 times in a game, and it's just you got to have that balanced attack, especially when you have a back as talented as David Johnson. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. They definitely need to make him more part of their game plan if they want to win, and I do feel like they will win. But as far as Carolina goes, it's unfortunate to be without their starting quarterback, but they need to get McCaffrey more involved somehow into this game, which I found very, very surprising that he did have a bad game last week. We all know that. Tampa Bay just locked him down. But he's played in every single offensive snap this season for them, and they're trying to cut down on his workload, but I mean, it clearly shows that he's still getting the workload. So, I mean, I don't know why they would say that, and then they kind of, contradicting themselves by having him on the field every play. But if they're going to have him on the field, then they need to use him more than what they're using him, because he's definitely their best player on offense. That offense is very stale. They didn't even have a touchdown last week. Their points were scored off of field goals and a safety. So they need to clean it up and get their act together on offense. One bright spot for the Panthers is Luke Kuechly is looking like he's going to have a heck of a year. He had 17 tackles last week, including the tackle in the end zone for the safety. So maybe get some good news with Cam Newton later on in the week and kind of see what's going on with this foot sprain. Because like I said before, he didn't practice at all this week. But let's we'll just kind of see how that all goes for him. But until they have him, I really don't like their chances moving forward. But next game on the docket is the Giants at the Bucks. So the Bucks are 6-point favorites in this game. And they have been playing pretty well defensively. I have high praise for San Francisco. I think they're a surprise team. I mean, granted, it's still very early in the season, but from what they've been able to do and how they've been able to do it, I'm impressed with what I've seen so far with them. But even in their first game against San Francisco, they played a very good defensive game. A lot of the points were scored off of, pick sixes. So, it's just, you can't hold the defense accountable for that. They have no control over that. And that's why, I can understand the 6-point spread that they have. And then this is also the first game for Daniel Jones to be the starter for the Giants. I don't know if they're just kind of throwing him in, just out of kind of, I said it before, they really just kind of want to spark the team a little bit. But now it's his team. It's his team. If you want to build this guy, you take him 6 overall. If you want to build this guy and build him the right way, you don't flutter in and out between having him and Eli as a starter. Eli's the backup from this moment on, and you just got to ride him for the end of the season. And I think it's a little early for them to do that, but that's what they're going through. That's what their game plan is. So that's the way they should keep it, and we'll just kind of see how that works out. As far as the game as a whole, going back to Daniel Jones, all we really have off of him is just what he was able to do in the preseason, obviously. And something that I noticed is he has some ball security issues. He fumbled it 3 times in preseason. You can't do that in this league. You just can't. And he's young. He's going to make mistakes. I mean, that's perfectly normal. But he definitely needs to clean it up. And he's going to be on an offense where the Giants are just terrible on third down. I think they're like 27%. So they were 5 for 23 on third down. Got to clean that up. Got to clean that up for sure. And who knows what they can do. I still really, really like Tampa Bay just purely on their defense. And if they can get a consistent Jameis Winston. You get a Jameis Winston that's the turnover machine that he can be more often than not. Giants are very much alive in this game. But if he plays like he did last week, didn't turn the ball over, just kind of, they had a balanced attack with him kind of throwing it here and there, and then they ran the ball really well. Tampa Bay's going to win the game, win it convincingly, I think. But moving on, we have the Texans at the Chargers. The Chargers are a 3-point favorite in this game. Hunter Henry is going to be out for this game for the Chargers, and that would be huge for them to have him. But, I go back into the it was actually kind of ironic with the things that have happened with the class of 04 QB class. You've got Roethlisberger that gets hurt and out for the season. Eli's getting benched, and Phillip Rivers is starting again for his I believe it's his 209th straight start. And that ties him for second among active players behind Eli Manning. So the Chargers, they just need to kind of just clean it up. I like them in this game, but they had plenty of opportunities to win last week, and they just failed to do so. They had 2 touchdowns called back from penalties. They missed 2 field goals, and then they had a turnover in the red zone. And, you're not going to win that way. You just can't. And I look for them to bounce back and play a more complete game this week. And it's kind of ironic that we talk about these big defenses. I know I spoke earlier about the Broncos and they're without a sack, without a turnover, but J.J. Watt hasn't got a sack yet either himself for the Texans. So, just look for him to, maybe kind of bounce back and get back to his old form in this game. But something that really stands out to me also is how well despite the Melvin Gordon issues that they've had with his holdout, the Chargers are running the ball very good with the 2-back approach that they have going. They're actually averaging 5.7 yards a carry. And then you look on the flip side, the Texans are allowing over 120 yards a game in rushing. So it's kind of just looks like, it's set up good for, the Chargers to pull this off, and I really think they will. Moving on, we have the Saints and Seahawks, which it's a shame because this could have been a really good game if Drew Brees was playing, obviously. There's going to be a lot of games that we're going to look at, for the next 6 weeks and think, man, what would that be, having Brees in there? That's what you're used to with him in the Sean Payton era. It's always, one or the other. They're both, always together. And Sean Payton's actually 0-3 as a head coach when Drew Brees isn't playing, so maybe they'll rewrite that ship, but this is a tough game for Teddy Bridgewater. It's going to be his first start for him, obviously. And this is the first 2-0 start for Seattle since their Super Bowl run in 2013. So, I like Seattle in this game, obviously. Wilson's been playing really well. He's got 5 touchdowns this season. He hasn't thrown an interception yet, and he also threw for 300 yards last week. And I just, it's unfortunate that but injuries happen in this league. So, Seattle's just, I think, going to go in there, and it's a home game for them as well. So I see Seattle winning pretty convincingly in this game. And now that wraps up just the docket of our regular games. We're going to move into the AFC North and cover them pretty heavily. And what better game to start with than what I feel like? And let's hope I'm right, because I've been pretty dead wrong so far this year. But I think I'm striking gold with this one here. As the game of the week, the Ravens and the Chiefs. I mean, what are you going to get from this game? The Chiefs are 5.5-point favorites in this game. I've seen a couple people. I believe it was a D coordinator stated that this could be the new Brady and Manning matchup with Mahomes and Jackson. I think you need to pump the brakes a little bit on that. I mean, Jackson has played pretty well the first two games, but let's not go that far yet. And I know that's what they want to do. They want to make noise and and say these things, but it's just too early to say that. And Patrick Mahomes is as good as Lamar Jackson's playing right now. Patrick Mahomes has the edge on him, which actually, if you believe it or not, the Ravens are number one in total defense and points scored. So they got KC on that. KC's actually third in total offense and fourth in points. Neither team has turned the ball over yet this season, so that'll be interesting. But going back to that quarterback matchup, you look at Jackson, he's 41 for 57. He's got 596 yards and 7 touchdowns. Mahomes has 7 touchdowns as well, but he's thrown for 821 yards. So, you look at some key injuries we got here as Jimmy Smith, the corner for the Ravens, is going to be out, and Eric Fisher, the starting left tackle for the Chiefs, he's also going to be out with a core injury, and he looks to miss some time with that. So that's kind of unfortunate. But I look at this game, I think that I really like Kansas City. I keep going back to I'm impressed with what Baltimore is able to do, but going into Kansas City, that's a tough place to play, and especially with how well that they've been playing, I can't. It's going to be a real good test for Lamar Jackson, and I'm just curious to see how it shakes out. I mean, I think everybody in the country is excited to see how this game plays out, because this is one of those early tests where everybody wants to anoint who they think the best team is, and this, that, and the other. And it's always a treat when you get these early season matchups like this, where it's like, okay, well, let's see what they're all about, and let's see if they're what we think they are. And I think Baltimore is a very good team, but Kansas City is still right up there. They have not missed a beat since their last season, going to the AFC Championship game. Could this be a potential matchup in the AFC Championship game? It could. I mean, it very much could, but that's if something happens to New England. And man, I mean, injuries and that are a part of the game, and they happen, and you never can tell what's going to happen. But if I'd have to say, I would probably lean more towards Kansas City and New England having a rematch in the AFC Championship game. But Baltimore's a good team. We'll just see what they can do. I do like their chances, but I got to give Kansas City the nod on this, especially being at home. And then we got the Bengals at the Bills. Bills are 6-point favorites in this game, rightfully so. They're led behind a 2-0 record with Josh Allen playing pretty good ball here. He didn't look too hot in his first game, but he made up for it in his second game. And a couple of injuries that we're looking at as far as the Cincinnati side. Cordy Glenn is out again, which is unfortunate. I'd like to see what the offense can do with him at left tackle, but we haven't yet got to see that yet so far. Carl Lawson is doubtful as well. So we'll just kind of see how that plays out for the rest of the weekend. Maybe he might get in. I mean, we don't know. I mean, that's a heck of a blow if he can't play, because I think he's really come along strong so far this season. And B.W. Webb is out too. He's a corner for Cincinnati. Cincinnati's got a tough test ahead of them right this week. Buffalo, they, like I said, they struggled. They were able to rally in their first game, come back from 16 points down and win the game. But they definitely looked a lot more impressive last week. The offense had 4 70-yard plus touchdown drives. So anytime you can do that in this league, that's impressive. And it's not going to be easy. They're on their defense. They're allowing just 22 points so far this year. So there was a couple points scored outside of the defense, but as far as the defense is concerned, they've only allowed 22 points. And with the way Cincinnati played last week, that's kind of a scary thought. But I really think they'll bounce back this week. This is going to be a good test for them on the road. Everybody in Buffalo loves Andy Dalton, but I don't know if the reception's going to be the same this week. I think they're kind of done and over that whole game against Baltimore a couple years back, where we helped them get into the playoffs. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Cincinnati. You always want to fall back on what you've seen, the last thing you've seen, and the last thing I seen was just a terrible, terrible performance. But all that aside, Dalton actually leads the league in completions. He's got 61 completions this season. He's second in the league in passing yards with 729 yards. But so for the most part, he's been able to move the ball. I know last week he wasn't able to. He had over 300 yards, but he had that big junk play at the end with John Ross, but for 66 yards. So that definitely inflates the numbers a little bit. But I think that they can bounce back and they can play well. I think Tyler Boyd is doing everything that you could ask him to do. He's playing really well. The biggest weakness for our team is the running game. The running game is just atrocious. Cincinnati's last in the league in running the ball. They've only managed to get 59 yards rushing, and Buffalo's only allowing an average of 98. So we'll see what happens here. Joe Mixon came out and said that don't blame the team for the problems at rushing and how we've been able to run the ball. He puts it all on himself, and he goes, "I promise I'll deliver." And so he's motivated. He's hungry. He wants to come out there and he wants to show that he can get back to the into the form that he was last year. Leading the AFC in rushing. It's a really tough test for the Bengals, but I guess you might want to call this the upset of the week. I don't know. I've got a later game to talk about that might prove otherwise, but as far as on paper and given, the spread and whatnot, I've got the Bengals winning this game. It'll be a hard-fought game, and if they can bounce back and actually get a first win for Coach Zach Taylor this season, that'll be good, because they're not having it any easier after that. They got Pittsburgh on Monday night, so despite them having Mason Rudolph, the fact that Cincinnati hasn't beaten Pittsburgh since 2015, it's hard for me to bet against Pittsburgh. They always have Cincinnati's number for whatever reason, but it just seems to always play out that way. So, like I said, look for Cincinnati to bounce back, get a win here, and maybe force some early turnovers and get the running game going, and we'll see how it all plays out. And going out west, we got the Steelers taking on the 49ers. The 49ers are a 6.5-point favorite in this game. This will be Mason Rudolph's first start. He didn't do bad in the half that he played. He went 12 for 19, 2 touchdowns, and he had a pick, but it was off of a tip pass. This is actually the 49ers' first home game. They opened up on the road their first 2 games and played really good football. Very impressed with the team. I think outside of 49er fans or diehard fans, I don't think anybody expected this from them. Not only being 2-0, but the way they've done it and the way the defense has stepped up and really played well. Unfortunately for them, they're going to be without Joe Staley, their left tackle, for 6 weeks. So their rookie Justin Skoll is going to start here at left tackle for him. So I mean, if Pittsburgh can get aggressive and get to the quarterback early, they're down a left tackle, so that's they should be chomping at the bit for that. But I don't like Pittsburgh in this game for numerous reasons. I mean, let's start first with the fact that they're going into this game with a unproven first-time starting quarterback here with Rudolph. I mean, the buzz around the team is that he's more than capable of performing and performing well, but man, against what San Francisco's done, especially going out west, because Pittsburgh since 2015 has been 0-4 in games traveled west, and that's even losing 2 games last season to Denver and Oakland, teams that they should have easily beat, but they just, for some reason, they don't travel very well out west, and coupled with going up against the talented 49ers team, like I said before, I don't like their chances. I really don't like them at all. The 49ers are running the ball really well, too. They had a combined, between 3 players, 238 yards rushing last week. Pittsburgh's been okay at best against the run this season. But I beat a dead horse. But if Pittsburgh wants any chance to win, I think you guys know where I'm going with this. Give James Conner the ball. Get him involved in the offense. I don't care if it's a two-score game early on. Get him involved. Get him as many touches as you can early and often. Because the run game, in this league, the running game will open up so much. It'll open up play action. It'll open up, it'll weaken the defensive front a little bit, just as the game progresses. It's not a sexy way to win, but it's an effective way. You control the clock. You control the line of scrimmage. Good things can happen to you throughout the course of the game. But, Connor is 21 for 54 with a touchdown. You got to bring more than that. You got to give him more than that. And he's going up against a very talented front with San Francisco. They've only allowed 75 yards a game. So, this is the time to do it. This is the time to really, come out there and try to establish yourself. And they're not going to get it easy against San Francisco. But with that being said, I like San Francisco. I like them at least by 10 points in this game. I think they're going to just come out just on fire. I mean, that crowd is going to be riled and ready to go, considering this is their home opener. As crazy it is, this and how it sounds, but it is. And with the team that they've put forth on the field, I mean, how could these fans not get excited about it? I think that'll be a rocking place come Sunday. But then lastly, we'll cover the Sunday night game. Another primetime game for the Browns. Rams at Browns. The Rams are favored by 3 in this game. If you look at this game, anybody around the NFL, and I've probably caught a lot of flack for how hard I've been on Cleveland, but I'm only that way because of the expectations that were set for this team. It wasn't necessarily set by them. They didn't do it. It was general media and how well they looked on paper. Everybody wanted just to, anoint them something that they haven't even achieved yet. I know that sounds really bad, but I'm trying to take it easy on the Browns. But everybody, what I was getting back to, everybody consensusly would pick the Rams in this game. I'm not going to. I'm going out on a limb, and I think Cleveland gets their act together this week. Although they won last week, they played against a very beaten-up, battered Jets team that was very bad. But it doesn't matter. They got the win. That's all that matters, at the end of the day. Whether you win by 40 or win by 1, a win is a win. And it's just Baker needs to play better. He's not coming into the season very hot. He's missing a lot of throws that he should make. He's not looking like the same player he was last season. But I think he'll bounce back. He's definitely got to do better than what he has been doing. I think he's thrown 2 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. And coming out of college, everybody raved about his arm strength and his accuracy. How he's such an accurate quarterback, and he's just looked shaky. But then you have those little moments. The 89 touchdown yard pass to Odell Beckham. I don't feel they're quite on par yet with their chemistry, but that will develop as the season progresses. And but I also seen that the Rams are looking like they might have 3 untested guys starting on the line this game, which shapes well for that front for Cleveland, because Myles Garrett has been a beast. I mean, he's been an absolute monster. He just needs to clean his act up, be disciplined. None of these roughing the passer calls. He's got to get his act together. The Browns in general need to get their act together with their penalties. They're still committing too many penalties. But I do think they will bounce back in this game. I mean, like I said, everybody would think you're a fool for picking the Browns in this game, but I like them at home. They're actually, I believe they're 3-0 in primetime games since last season. So when the bright lights come on, the Browns are showing up and playing. So I do like them in this game. A fun fact, Todd Gurley actually scored his first 2 touchdowns in his career in 2015 against the Browns. So it was in St. Louis. It was not L.A., but it is a little neat little tidbit there. But yeah, like I said, just Cleveland clean up their act, get the penalties under control, and Baker needs to come out and knock some of that rust off that he's shown so far. And it's not going to be an easy game. I mean, it's not by any means, and the Rams are one of the most balanced teams in the league right now, but for some reason my gut is just telling me that Cleveland's going to pull this off at home. So, get the Browns fans off my back for a little bit here, because I do. I'm not, this isn't a hometown pick here, but I really do like their chances. So, with that being said, that wraps up the Sunday games, and I'm not going to cover the Monday night game. That's between the Bears and Redskins. That is something I will do Monday. I'm going to make a consistent thing that Monday will be my first week of posting. So I'll cover a rundown of how all the games went on Sunday, and then preview the Monday night game, and then follow back on Tuesday with a rundown of how the Monday night game goes, and also a preview of the upcoming Week 4 Thursday night game. And that's going to be kind of how the format's going to go. And, between now and Monday and Tuesday, there might be some things that develop within the league, and I will continue to, bring up those points and talk about those things as well. And most notably, I would also like to say that this is one of the first weeks that I really feel like college football is really starting to kind of come together. It's not quite there. We do have a couple good matchups this week, but I'm not completely sold yet with as far as covering them. But look for that into the future. Thanks again, guys, for listening, and I will see you guys again on Monday.